Hi everyone, welcome back. I'm Michael Sandler, your host on Inspire Nation. If you've ever wanted more energy and mojo in your life, then do we have the Superwoman and Superman prescription show for you. Today I'll be talking with Dr. Tasneem Bhatia, MD, better known as Dr. Taz, board-certified integrative medicine and fitness expert, and the best-selling author of What Doctors Eat, The 21-Day Belly Fix, and her fantastic new book, Superwoman RX. And that's just what I want to talk with her about today, about discovering your superpowers and unlocking the secrets for lasting health, energy, fitness, and passion. That plus we'll talk about Hawaiian hair, the power of chocolate smoothies, what's the importance of imposter pancakes, and what in the world does swinging chickens in the air and waving herbs around have to do with anything.
I love it.
Woohoo! So welcome to the show, Dr. Taz. Are you ready to shine?
I am ready. Thank you. What a great introduction.
Awesome. Well, so glad you enjoyed it. So before we dive right into things, and I couldn't find this in the book, but what were you like growing up?
What was I like growing up? You know, it's funny you ask. My daughter just had to do a whole essay on me on what I was like growing up. And I told her that I was shy. Mm-hmm. I was a little reserved. I was definitely a nerd, no doubt about it, complete with the bob haircut and the breakouts and everything else. But I also was a dreamer. You know, I used to dream and I used to have visions and goals and desires and all that stuff, but it kept most of it to myself. I used to love to write, and I still do. So some things haven't changed. I'm not as shy as I used to be, but some of those basic characteristics haven't changed.
That makes sense. So how'd you get interested in medicine then?
You know, it's the craziest story, and it sounds completely idealistic, but remember, I'm part dreamer. So we took a trip to India, which is where my family's from, when I was 10 years old. It's the first time that I had gone that I could actually remember it. And my mother's from a city called Calcutta, and it's a big, bustling city, lots of poverty, lots of everything, really. It's just overwhelming to go there. And I remember being kind of shocked and watching and taking all the sights and the sounds and the colors and the smells, taking all that stuff in, but struck more than anything by the poverty and by seeing children my age on the street and seeing them honestly sick. They had a broken leg, they had a broken arm, you know, all this other, just being sort of inundated with this issue. And at that point, I think somewhere in my subconscious, I decided that I wanted to take care of children. And I didn't know about medicine necessarily. I was 10 at the time, but I definitely had sort of locked away that I wanted to take care of children. So then as I went through my schooling and my education and everything else, again, I'm a very split person. Like, I was attracted to journalism, but then I was attracted to medicine because there was the science and the kind of the deductive part of it that I liked, and you've
done both.
And I know, it's so funny. So I didn't go into journalism. I chose medicine. And once you go into medicine, you don't really have a lot of opportunity to write necessarily as you go through residency and med school and everything. So really all of that was shoved aside for years. I mean, I didn't write. I didn't really read other than a medical textbook. And it's just funny how things come full circle. It really is. So now I do a little bit of both.
Awesome. And then if we travel forward in your life to 2001, it was kind of a turning point for you. You're 28 years old. What's going on?
You know, so by 2001, I had finished med school, I had finished residency, I had started a job in the emergency room. I should have been at a really prime point in my life where the toughest stuff was behind me. But in those years, those 8 to 12 years of schooling, what I didn't know or didn't really connect with myself was that I myself was getting sick. I was losing hair, I was breaking out, I was gaining weight, and slowly getting more fatigued and having swollen joints and achy joints and a lot of other really soft symptoms. Nothing that's going to say, hey, something's massively wrong with me, but a lot of very subtle symptoms. But again, me being stubborn and wanting to power through, you know, I just kept ignoring them. And it was, again, somebody else. I was in the emergency room. I was seeing patients. And I started to notice that patients weren't looking at me when I talked. They were looking up at my scalp, and they were looking at kind of like I had sort of a very obvious bald area at the top of my scalp, and they were fixated on that and not saying anything, but completely distracted by the way I looked. And it was at that point I started to get depressed. I started to get anxious. Didn't really want to get out of the house. You know, you started having all those self-esteem issues, and it was finally, I think it was my mom and my husband who were like, you know what, something's wrong. You need to go to a doctor and you need to go get checked out. And so if I could be that disconnected from myself and had to have other people tell me to go get checked out. I can't imagine what the average person goes through on a day in or day out basis. But that began the journey of trying to fix myself, which started the whole experience with our medical system, and I didn't get answers. And as I continued to not get answers and got really frustrated and were put on medications or given suggestions that quite honestly didn't work for me or had terrible side effects, some of which could have been life-threatening.
Well,
I realized
one side effect. You literally, you were given a medication, a last chance medication, in theory to keep you from losing your hair by 30, and you totaled the car.
I did. So again, I went to this well-known doctor, known across the country for hair loss. And he was like, young lady, I just remember him looking at me. If you don't do something right this second, then you're going to be bald by 30. And there's nothing I'm going to be able to do about it at that point. You'll have wigs or whatever else you can wear. He goes, you need to take this medication. That's the only way to stop this thing from progressing. And so the medication drops your blood pressure. And I already was somebody with very low blood pressure, already suffered from low blood sugar. And I take the medication and literally passed out at the wheel while driving, crashed my car. I was lucky that I didn't hit anybody else or didn't get hurt myself. But it was sort of that was the moment I was like, oh my gosh, what is happening to me? I have got to take this into my own hands. I've got to figure this out. So I just pulled up everything I could pull up. I started studying nutrition. I studied acupuncture, holistic medicine, Chinese medicine, Ayurveda, just became a complete sponge for a while, trying to put the pieces together for me, not really for anybody else. And it was such a tough journey, but also just I was astounded by how much we're not presented with in medical school, how there are these vats of information, volumes of information that we just are not given. We really, as physicians, come into the game very ill-equipped. I mean, if I had had even a fourth of the knowledge I've sought on my own, every doctor would be so empowered and be able to do so much for their patients. So it was very eye-opening. I did fix myself, but as I continued to study, I mean, once you learn one thing, you want to keep going. You're like, wait, there's more. I want to learn more. And, my husband's watching this from the sidelines. He was in school at the time, and he's kind of watching this evolution. And he's like, you know what, you've been studying this stuff, for almost 7 or 8 years. It's time you do something with it. And so that was sort of the motivation to start a practice.
Woohoo!
I know.
So I've got goosebumps. I think it was 21, 22. I had come back from racing in bicycles in Europe and hit by a car, had a spinal to do an operation. A week later, my spinal fluid pressure changed as I was driving a car. I passed out, totaled the car, managed to miss everybody on the highway and hit the guardrail. Thank God, came to before I hit oncoming traffic. And I was struggling with huge blood sugar challenges, which it took me another 10, 15 years to get under control. Thankfully, fully under control. Talking about your husband, who's future husband at the time. What can you tell us about getting married in Hawaii?
Oh my gosh. It was magical. That's the only word I can describe. First of all, I, since the age of, 12, 13, had never not worked and never not really just been pushing myself as hard as I could push myself. And to get married, we took 3 weeks off. We took a week off for all the wedding stuff and the wedding festivities, and then 2 weeks for the honeymoon part of it. So you've got to understand it's the first time, and I think I'm 30 by this point, or 31 or whatever my age was. But by this point, it's been about 15 years that I've truly had a break, so to speak. And I have 3 weeks off. We go away. And it was amazing. I completely rested. My brain rested. I physically rested. And literally by the end of those 3 weeks, after we came back, a couple weeks later, my hair had already improved. I'd already fixed a lot of my issues. But the hair of my youth came back, super thick, super lustrous, coming in all over the place, I mean, it was just bizarre. And I'm like, what is going on? But again, the lesson there was the power of relaxation, the ability of the body to heal itself, to recover if we allow it, if we give it an opportunity. And of course, I did go back into the emergency room shortly thereafter and started doing shifts again and flip-flopping my nights. So it didn't last. But at the same time, had I truly modified my lifestyle completely then and stayed out of the emergency room and stayed out of shift work and things like that, it probably would have stayed. But it was unbelievable. He's unbelievable anyways, but it was just an unbelievable, 3 or 4 weeks of my life.
Awesome. And what's fascinating to me, at the start of your book, you describe a typical morning of yours, and maybe you can give
Yes.
us the expressed
Yes.
version, but there's a mantra I use, which I believe you use in your mornings without realizing it. I call it kind, gentle, easy, good. It doesn't mean that you aren't moving quickly and getting a lot done, but you're doing it with a lot of kindness toward yourself and without pushing yourself full throttle. Does that sound right?
That sounds exactly right. And I think the key for me, and that's sort of the tongue-in-cheek title of the book in itself, is that, if you watch me, if you had a camera, watching me from the time I wake up until the time I get out the door, it's almost comical. I think it's funny. It's hilarious. I mean, it's all of those things all wrapped up into one. And it also probably looks externally very exhausting, but I love the morning. First of all, I like to be up super early, like somewhere between 4:30 and 5 o'clock, because it's quiet and I can think, I can meditate, I can do what I need to do before I get interrupted by everybody else. So, but from the moment I wake up, if I want to do all those things, if I want to have my 5 to 10 minutes of meditation, if I want to enjoy my morning cup of tea, if I want to work out, or if I would just want to prep the meals of the day and make sure I'm fed properly, I've got to move. It's like we're on a schedule. So it's okay. Here's the meditation. Here's the tea. Here's the exercise. Time to get the kids up. Time to get them up. Trying to get Vic out of the house. But it's a fine-tuned schedule in which I'm moving. But I look forward to it because I love what I do. I love the morning. I love kind of all the different aspects of my life. I don't ever wake up anymore like I used to in the emergency room. I don't ever wake up like dreading the day or feeling exhausted or having trouble getting through the day or things like that. Those are no longer issues I have today, even though I'm so much older than where I was back in 2001. So for me, it's, externally it looks like craziness or whatever it looks like, but I know how to take care of myself and I know how to fuel myself. So everything that looks like, all these people commonly, my daughter named the book. She's like, Mom, everyone calls you a superwoman. Maybe that should be the name of your next book. It's like, I'm not, though. I have natural energy and I'm internally motivated to do all these things. And the minute I too step off of my game and eat the wrong foods or skimp on sleep or travel too much or whatever it is, then I also feel like just staying in bed and not doing anything. So what I wanted everyone to understand was that this craziness that is my life is fueled by my ability to today take care of myself, which I didn't have all those years ago.
Fascinating. What I find really cool here, because, and I want to talk about activating our superpowers, but I see kind of a chicken and the egg syndrome here, where you said you're internally motivated, but my guess is everything that's in your book helps you generate that chi, that energy, to allow you to be internally motivated.
Yes, you nailed it. And I don't know how many times I try to, such an abstract concept for a lot of people, right? Most of us think in boxes, but the biggest message of the book is that your health is your life. Like that chi is created by all the raw materials, all the chemistry, all of that stuff comes together to make that chi, which then in turn determines the outcomes in the course of your life. And it's sort of my mission and my passion is to make people understand that, because at a micro level, yes, when we make wrong decisions, we gain weight, we have hormonal imbalances, we don't feel good, we have brain fog. But at a macro level, when we don't take care of ourselves, our entire existence and reason for being here is never met. We choose the wrong people in our lives, we choose the wrong careers, we go down the wrong road, and it's almost like we never fulfill the promise of why we got here, and we never contribute to our world maybe the way we could have, because we didn't take care of these very basic fundamental things. So that's like the big picture, but it's really hard to translate that. And it sounds, again, grandiose and the dreamer in me and all of that other stuff. But I've seen it. I've seen it day in and day out in practice where, you see somebody who's so defeated because of their health or because of something else going on in their life, but you educate them on how to put themselves back together, how to build themselves back up, whether it's food or supplements or hormones or whatever it is. And shortly thereafter, somewhere, it's different for everyone, 90 days, 6 months, whatever it is, you see them in a different light. Like they've got light in their eyes and they're ready to go conquer the world. And they're like, you know what, Dr. Taz, I think I'm going to start that business, or I'm going to change my job, or I'm going to go, I'm going to divorce that terrible guy, or whatever it is, but they figure it out. But you can't get there until you've got all these other pieces where they belong and lined up so that you can make your best decisions.
Awesome. I want to talk about Mojo Meter and then get into some of the ways we can become a superwoman or superman. Before that, since you have all these patients coming in and they're telling you they're struggling, is there an early first piece you put in so that they can get a glimmer of light or hope or a tiny bit of energy so that they can actually then dive into the work?
I think the biggest thing for patients that I've noticed when they're coming in, either feeling defeated or whatever the reason is to help them understand how they got to where they got to. I think that's the biggest thing. So we'll do a lot of timelines in the history and help them connect the dots and bring all these different systems of medicine that I'm trained in together to help them say, like, hey, it's as simple as you're not getting B vitamins and those are making you tired, foggy, fatigued, depressed, whatever it is. It could be that simple. Or it might be something like, well, this is emotional. The fact that you're in a bad relationship, no matter what else I do, it's not going to help you navigate the fundamental stressor in your life. You're going to have to work on this. So, is there one thing I could tell every patient? I think the one thing I could tell everyone or try to teach everyone is how to connect back to yourself to understand, what it is that's not getting met when it comes to you. And once you understand, and just like me, completely disconnected, full of knowledge, but completely disconnected, once you can connect back to yourself, only then can you put the knowledge in place. So my first goal is always to teach somebody how to connect back to themselves, understand themselves. And that's what the Mojo Meter is all about, because many of us are in our head and we're busy and we're taught to push through and we don't take a moment to understand, hey, we might be off. But if you had something like the Mojo Meter and you used it as a tool and you used it to check in on yourself every month, then you would notice when the scores are changing or when the numbers are shifting. And it might be a warning sign like, hey, connect back to yourself. Something's off. What's off? And then you can use your knowledge and your toolboxes and things like that to help you maybe change what you're doing.
Beautiful. And for everybody who didn't really catch that, there's a Mojo Meter in her book. And that helps you to see, you kind of have an idea whether you got your mojo going on or not, if you're dragging there, but you can be completely disconnected and not realize it, right?
Absolutely. Again, I go back to the way I was, the way I've seen my patients, they power, the common phrase is power through. We power through. I'm like, well, your energy is showing like it's really low on these different meridian evaluations in the practice that we have. Are you feeling that way? They're like, well, I guess so. I was just powering through, and then it's only when they're feeling amazing that they're like, wow, I didn't realize how miserable I was. I didn't realize how bad I felt. So a lot of times you don't realize how good it can be until you get better and you just accept whatever it is of the reality of yourself at the present moment.
Beautiful. So let's go from there. Let's talk about power types and power test. And I know your book is geared, and you've got another one coming up for men in the future, but this one was geared more towards women. But I took the test anyway.
So funny. I love it.
I
You're
had
to.
Be
a superwoman.
I don't know what that says. And we had John Gray on the show, Men Are From Mars, a couple weeks ago, talking about these particular things that men need to do to make sure their testosterone are up. If their estrogen is up too high, then they actually get more stressed out and anxious. So I have to be careful not to become a superwoman. With that said,
right, exactly.
You could still get an idea. It's very much got an Ayurvedic element of mind-body type. I took it the first time. I came out as a gypsy guy. I realized I had to skip a bunch of questions because I'm a guy. If I rounded that in, I probably became the savvy guy. At first, I actually read that as the savory guy.
I like that.
Maybe you can tell us a little bit about the power types, and then I'm going to go in and ask some specific questions. But what are the different power types?
So again, I wanted to make this fun and easy to read. So the 5 power types, and each power type, remember, is created by merging together Ayurvedic diagnoses, Chinese medical diagnoses, hormone types, nutrition, and lab findings that I'd see on these patients over and over again, throughout my 9 years or so of being here. And one of the things we found was that women really do fall into 5 distinct types. And if they only understood this, then wow, what a powerful tool. You could be proactive, you could be preventive, and you would know how to navigate the wellness world because you would know what is right for you, not necessarily what the latest fad is or the latest trend is. Mm-hmm. So the 5 types, we try to keep them with lots of fun names, but there's the Gypsy Girl, there's the Boss Lady, the Savvy Chick, the Earth Mama, and the Nightingale. And those names are intentional, and they each have different connotations behind them, and we can talk a little bit more about that if you want, but they each match up to specific diagnoses in all these different systems of medicine.
Yeah, let's definitely dive in there. And just a couple of days ago, my wife and I rescued, I don't know if that's the correct term yet, we'll figure it out, a couple of raccoons that lost their mama. And they both have such, they're little babies, they're about hand size. They both have such distinct personalities. I was like, I wonder if I can give you guys the test, because whether it's people's, animals, cats.
Oh my gosh. Oh my goodness. I love it.
We can have fun with it. So let's dive into the Gypsy Girl. First off, tell us about the Gypsy Girl, and then what's the alter ego of the Gypsy Girl?
Sure. So the Gypsy Girl is sort of that, man or woman who is very much a little bit the dreamer in a creative space. They're maybe have a more artistic bent to them, but they match up. It's interesting because that's their personality characteristics, but they typically match up with the Ayurvedic diagnosis of Vata, the Chinese medical diagnosis of kidney meridian deficiency, the hormone pattern of having adrenal imbalances or adrenal fatigue. And so it's fascinating. Again, I had tons of spreadsheets and I would try to chart all this stuff out. So it's fascinating to see how it all matches up. And then from a medical standpoint, a lot of their common medical issues are typically anxiety, being very prone to anxiety. I think you mentioned that about yourself as well. It's funny, my daughter took the test and she wasn't supposed to. She's only 9. And she was like, well, I want to see what I am. I'm like, this is not a book for kids, it's for women. But the way she answered the questions that she did answer, she's a gypsy. And it totally made sense because she's always off somewhere. And it's a lot of like, Rania, like repeating her name 20 times and trying to get her to do something. But she's also amazing. She has an incredible eye. She loves to write as well. And so, again, it just clicked for me as well. I'm like, oh, my God, my daughter's a gypsy. This is how I need to interact with her. But those are sort of the medical things that go with it, are anxiety, ADHD. These are the women typically that I've seen that have a little bit more of a struggle with infertility. So it's interesting to match the medical diagnoses with the Ayurvedic, with the Chinese medicine, with the nutrition, and mix it all up and see what you get. Their alter ego, like, again, when we think of a personality or something, along those lines, like we always think of a celebrity that goes with it. So I think we picked Audrey Hepburn as like a classic example of that particular type. She was always sort of high fashion, had a great eye for everything, great style, all that other stuff. And she was a bit of a dreamer as well. So that's some of what goes with the Gypsy Girl.
Beautiful. And I want to talk a little bit about how we can help the gypsy. I guess actually let's go through each one. Then we'll talk about how to help each one. One of the questions my wife had when I dove into this book, she said, can you switch over time or over a lifetime between one and another?
I love that question because it was a point I was trying to make in the book. Now, one of the things, again, women in particular, we're hormonal. We go through different phases of life. We go through different stages. And as we do that, our types are going to change. I bet if I took the test as a little girl, I probably was like my daughter. I was a gypsy, but now that I'm older, I'm a savvy chick. Even some of my staff, at one point they were a savvy chick, but after, breastfeeding and everything else, they turned into a boss lady, for example. So we will flux and we will change. And I want this book to be a handbook for life because, again, it's a place you keep coming back to, do the test again. Depending on how your life is changing, you may be a different type and have completely different needs. So yes, you can change types.
I like that because certainly in my younger days, I would have been on the squirrel on crack side of things. I actually wrote a book for students and adults with ADD because I had bounced off the wall and figured out how to rewire myself. But then I moved away from that into a much more quieter, contemplative, aware space over time.
Wow.
So I like that we can shift. So you mentioned another one here, and that follows progressively. So tell us about the boss lady or the boss guy.
Yeah, so the boss lady or boss guy, I would think of those guys, as the name suggests, on purpose, sort of commanders, directors, leaders, go-getters. They run teams. They're the ones that are typically in charge, or they like to be in charge. They're ambitious. They've got that energy. We call it a lot of yang energy in Chinese medicine, but they've got that energy definitely, and it's usually visible and it's usually palpable. However, again, they match up. So it matches up so the boss lady will match up to being Pitta in Ayurvedic medicine, having liver meridian deficiency or stagnation in Chinese medicine. And then from a hormonal standpoint, usually having a lot of issues with their thyroid. And what we find with the boss lady is that typically, just like Ayurveda and Chinese medicine predicts, they have a lot of digestive issues. The gut is sort of their Achilles heel. That's their weak point. And because of that, again, the soft signs, they may have IBS or constipation or reflux, but then many of those things will then progress to inflammatory disorders because we know the gut is a harbinger and kind of the home base of inflammation. So those are the people that later in life often present with autoimmune diseases or even things like cancer in its most extreme form, because cancer, as we're understanding today, is basically an inflammatory disorder. So from a medical standpoint, those are the things that we worry about with those particular people.
Thank you. So let's go from there and let's talk about the savvy chick or the savory guy.
So the savvy chick is me and you, apparently. So the savvy chick is a little bit of both. You've got a little bit of the gypsy in you, which is the creative, the writer, the artist, the painter, whatever it is, the dreamer. But you also have the go-get, kind of that ability to get things done that the boss lady does. It's an interesting type. It's not one that I necessarily predicted for myself. I mean, I did the test, I planned the test out very objectively and then did the test and found that out about myself. And I would, everybody here at the practice thinks that I'm a boss lady, but I'm like, no, I'm a savvy chick. And I think the savvy chicks are visionaries. So they are the savvy guy. They're the visionaries. They're the people that we have dreams or visions or we create in a different space, but then we also take kind of our other skill set of commanding and doing and being able to implement and merge those things together. And so we often are the people that are creating companies or creating a product or creating, a brand or, doing a way that merges those two worlds together. So it's an interesting type. It's also a troubling type from a medical standpoint because you have both. You deal with both the vata and the pitta imbalances. You deal both with liver, kidney issues. You deal with adrenal and thyroid issues, and you have the nutritional needs of both. So it's a little bit more challenging, but I can always spot a savvy chick when I see one or a savvy guy when I see one because I can tell their brain's functioning on two planes, and that's exactly what mine does.
Actually, one of the things that I was thinking about with the two types combined in the savvy chick or the savvy guy is it means that if you're in balance, you're clipping along great. You're getting things done. You're starting your companies. You're running your show like I am here. But if you get out of balance, you can really get out of balance.
Correct. And that's why this is such a powerful tool, because if you do get out of balance, it's adrenal crash, a thyroid crash. You can suffer from severe anxiety. You can suffer from severe digestive disorders. So those are things that I always say, well, how do I say it? It's always double the advantages, but also double the stress and double the negatives. So it's important for that particular type, and that's why I watch myself so carefully. It's really important for that particular type to take good care of themselves, because they're at risk for burning out and for crashing even more so than maybe some of the other ones.
The higher you are, the farther you fall.
Yes,
or can
definitely.
Fall.
Definitely.
On that note, let's talk about getting grounded. Earth Mama and Earth Papa.
Yeah, so I call my husband an Earth Papa, actually. I think he's that type. He hasn't officially done the test. But they're the people that are nurturers. They take care, they love and they identify and they revel in taking care of others. And they're absolutely fine with that being their sole mission in life. So they're usually the folks that are the center of a family, the center of a community. They're the go-to people in a friend circle. You always can pick them out. And, all of that nurturing, they're the biggest nurturers, but all of that nurturing, they cannot set boundaries with themselves. And so typically when they've done too much of that and neglected themselves, they withdraw and they suffer from depression. They often have a lot more cardiovascular issues. They have more issues with blood sugar. They're the ones that tend to gain weight the most easily. And from an Ayurvedic standpoint, they identify more with the Kapha type, the Kapha dosha. From a Chinese medical standpoint, again, it's the spleen meridian that's often off that creates that dampness, that heaviness that we associate sometimes with an Earth Mama. So their biggest challenge is to learn to move, to learn to take care of themselves, and to learn to eat and sleep to balance insulin appropriately. I feel like that's their biggest challenge that I see over and over again in practice.
That makes sense. And I think we all need an Earth Mama or Earth Papa in our lives because they are the grounding force. They make everybody feel good around it and keep us, particularly if you have a little bit of that Vata side in you, from spinning.
Totally. I mean, it was funny. My husband and I were talking. He's very much the Earth Mama. He's grounded. He's family oriented. He's not interested in a lot of other stuff. And I'm like, I'm a linear thinker. I think from point A to point, because we're talking about all these different types. And he's like, no, you're not. He goes, sometimes you are, but a lot of times you're not. So again, he's got that grounding force that I can spin in 20 directions, and then he knows how to bring it back to center. So
very good. So let's go from there. And I didn't come up with the guy version of this one. You're going to have to help me out on this one. The Nightingales.
I'm going to have to think about that. A guy version of a Nightingale. So the Nightingale is the person who, a little bit like an Earth Mama, and it is a little bit of a blended type, but they're completely selfless, and they have already sort of exhausted their reserve is the best way to think about them. They're the people that are doing mission trips. They're traveling the world. They're deep in the nonprofit world frequently is what I've seen. But for whatever reason, whatever the motivation is, they have burned out their immune system. So they've got the Vata element, they've got the Kapha element, they've got sort of the liver, kidney element as well, but they have very, very weak immune systems. So a lot of my work with them is how do we rebuild their immune systems, rebuild their hormone axis to give them the energy they need to then go forth and do whatever it is they want to do.
Very cool. So let's go through each type real quickly and give a few suggestions on what we can do to start to put things back into balance. So first, let's go to the Gypsy Girl and the Gypsy Guy.
Okay, so let's talk about them first. If I had to give maybe three very simple rules, the first one would be they've got to maintain a consistent sleep cycle. They're the ones that want to stay up late into the night. They're the ones that tell me, oh, I love the nighttime's my best time. I get my best creative work done. But that is exactly what burns out that hormone, the adrenals that we talked about with them earlier. So let's get into bed, consistent sleep, 11 o'clock at least 4 or 5 nights a week, and maintain that to preserve your adrenal function. So that would be rule number 1. Rule number 2 for them is they need to get enough protein. When they're not getting the protein in, it keeps their blood sugar highly unstable. So if they can get protein throughout the day, it's only going to fuel that creative fire that they have underneath them, and it'll help them. And my third one is they often benefit from B vitamins. So taking a B vitamin first thing in the morning supports the adrenals, and then also helps to manage some of the anxiety, ADHD, some of the other things that we see with them.
Fantastic. Magnesium?
Magnesium is wonderful for them. It calms the anxiety down. So maybe doing some magnesium at night is typically what I say. So that's a great one for the gypsy, all my gypsies out there. I
can say before bedtime, take a good Epsom salt bath.
Yes, we love Epsom salt baths. Absolutely. Great natural way to get magnesium in.
Awesome. So now, thank you. The boss lady and boss guy.
Boss lady and boss guy. So for them, it's interesting. Remember, the gut is their Achilles heel. So from a food-based standpoint, I usually pull them off dairy, because dairy is considered one of the hardest proteins to digest. So they often do better going dairy-free. From a supplement standpoint, really, again, focusing on the gut, so probiotics and digestive enzymes. And then from a mind-body standpoint, because, again, they're kind of on fire a lot of the times, things we can do to cool them down, so whether that's, getting massage or doing an Ayurvedic treatment called Shriyadhara or doing acupuncture, those are things that kind of calm that fire down and help them to recover so they can go right back into leading and commanding again the next day.
Fantastic. Tell us about the Savvy Chick.
So Savvy Chicks, Savvy Chicks are going to do a little bit of both. So Savvy Chicks do well being both dairy-free and gluten-free. And the reason for that is all tied up in the nutrient and hormone imbalances that we see with the two types. So dairy, of course, to help the gut out, going gluten-free to help the thyroid out. So that diet seems to work the best for them. Secondly, they do well on both B and magnesium as well, and they need also some of the fats to help buffer, kind of their overall hormone axis, and they also need consistent sleep. So those are probably the biggest things for the Savvy Chick.
Beautiful. And a couple extra on this. You had mentioned not using electronics before breakfast.
Oh, yes, definitely. That's probably one of the most important ones. So again, remember, these visionaries, they want to do everything. They want to do it all at one time. So one of the key things we talk about in the book is to not use your electronics or not get on your cell phones or your iPads when you wake up first thing in the morning. Get through your entire morning routine before you touch any of them. It allows the mind to rest. It gives it a break. And then you can go into whatever it is you have to do.
Fantastic. And boosting thyroid.
And definitely boosting your thyroid. We do it both through food and through supplements. Through food, we know we want foods rich in iodine like nori or kelp, or foods rich in iron. So even getting a little bit of red meat occasionally is important for a Savvy Chick. And then some of the supplements like iodine or selenium are helpful as well.
Fantastic. Going to Earth Mama and Earth Papa.
So Earth Mama and Earth Papa, so they have some different issues. They need to move. They have a tendency to not want to move. That's their natural inclination.
Mm-hmm.
So they need some form of movement every day, 20, 30 minutes every single day, if not even twice a day, because that helps to move that kapha energy, the spleen energy that we talk about with them. So that's rule number 1 for them. Rule number 2 for them is to not oversleep. They have, again, this tendency to naturally want or need more sleep, and will sleep 10 hours a day if they can, or 10 hours at night if they can. So again, limiting their sleep, keeping them as sort of at that 8-hour time frame is critical for them. And again, I think the mind-body piece for them is really important, because I feel like that's what gets a lot of them in trouble, is just as you would care for another person, think about yourself like your own child, and set aside 2 to 3 hours a week to nurture yourself. So whether you go, get a facial, hang out with your girlfriends or guy friends, or, just do something fun that you enjoy doing that nurtures you, I think that's critical for the Earth Mamas and Earth Papas.
Fantastic. And are you helping your husband in the morning to get up and at 'em?
I am. I'm the one. It's like, let's go. Let's get moving. So yes, absolutely.
Very cool. What about insulin regulation?
Insulin regulation is a key issue, like we talked about with the Earth Mamas. So their diet becomes critical. They actually, because remember, when I say insulin regulation, I'm talking about keeping blood sugar stable, not having it flip-flop all over the place, because these guys are more prone to insulin resistance. So they need to be dairy-free, but they also need to be sugar and yeast-free. They don't tolerate sugar. They have a tendency towards candida or yeast overgrowth in the gut. So the less of the sugar, alcohol, breads, grains, and things like that they get in, they typically maintain their weight and their energy and even cognitive function so much better.
More oil, less oil?
They actually do well with, again, that information is shifting, but they actually do well with more healthy fat, as long as that fat is not saturated like red meat and things like that. But the reason being is because the fat will keep insulin stable for longer. Mm-hmm. So we're actually noticing that they may be the ones, Earth Mamas may actually, when we talk about the ketogenic diet and all this stuff today, they may be the ones that benefit the most from that type of diet.
Thank you. And the last on this, which is, how about protein from veggie sources?
Definitely. For the Earth Mamas, are you referring to again? Yes. So they need protein as well, but again, not from excessive amounts of meat or things like that. They need to get it more from vegetarian sources, from vegetables, things like that, because that sustains their energy better. It helps their gut, and it helps to balance insulin.
Okay, let's talk about nightingales and nightingales.
All right, so nightingales, for them, we really want to help their immune systems. We want to help them recover, so to speak. First of all, they need consistent sleep. They're the ones, too, that want to skimp on sleep or are on different time zones. So we want sleep at a regular time, consistent times, for at least a 3-week period of time to help them recover. We talk a lot with them about immune boosters, so different things that help to boost the immune system, whether they're green smoothies or they're doing immune boosting supplements like astragalus or turmeric or things like that. But those are things that the nightingales need to focus on. We like recommending bone broth for them as well, because that, again, rehabs the gut and indirectly improves the immune system as well.
Fantastic. And when we're talking about these nightingales and nightingales, we're talking about the ones who are continuously getting sick, infections, respiratory challenges, and so they really need to rest and recover.
Yes, they need the rest, they need the recovery, they need a lot of immune system support. That's the only way that they can get better.
Fantastic. You talk a lot in the book. In fact, you have a whole section on using food to be thy medicine. What's the power of chocolate smoothies?
Oh my gosh, I love a good chocolate smoothie. Who doesn't love that? But again, using food as medicine is a tenet of the entire practice and of everything that I do. Again, you want food to be fun. You want it also to taste really good, but to provide the energy and the raw materials that you need. So we've got all kinds of fun chocolate smoothies in there for all the different types, and they can modify it according to the dietary plan that they need to be on. But a great way to get energy, and I think I drink one almost every morning.
Woohoo!
Yeah.
So, and something else that's going on in your house a lot, power of pancake imposters.
Oh my goodness, yes. So in fact, I think I just posted on my Insta story about it this morning. So one of my favorite tricks on my children who tell me they don't like eggs and don't like this and don't like that is to make pancakes, but we bulk them up with lots of eggs and disguise it with just a tiny bit of flour, and then put one of our milks, whether it's a nut milk or a regular milk, in there, and then a scoop of almond butter in there, and then I'll put a few chocolate chips, and they don't even realize that I've brought the protein content up to somewhere around 12 to 15 grams per serving, and I've brought their sugar down, and I've brought their carbohydrate load down, and they gobble them up. I think they saw me make them once and they were like, wait, you put eggs in that? And I'm like, no, not at all. There are no eggs in here whatsoever. So
it's a wheat
those
egg.
Exactly. So those are pancake imposters.
Thank you. So let's go from there real briefly. Exercise, and we talked briefly in the beginning about moving chi. And so I want to talk. It seems like a lot of the exercises you're suggesting are about moving energy.
It is all about moving energy. You know, I don't know if you've noticed, but I definitely have. Like, there's so many different workout crazes and fitness movements and things like that. But to go into a big fitness movement, like all the different ones out there, when you don't have the raw materials again, when you don't have the pieces of your energy together, usually depletes people further, and that's when they hurt themselves, they injure themselves, or a lot of times I'll find them eating excessively to make up for a really tough workout. So instead, again, thinking more about energy, how do we move our energy, how do we change our energy to, again, give us the superpowers that we need. So whether that's Tai Chi or yoga or Qigong or even Pilates or swimming, those are some of my favorites to start out with until you're really ready to do one of those high-powered workouts or a marathon or whatever else is on your bucket list, so to speak.
It's fantastic. Just before the interview, I went out. We've got a little lagoon behind the house, threw myself in the kayak for this very circular motion paddle, which instead of fatiguing me before the interview, boosted my energy levels up.
Absolutely. So movement boosts energy. Excessive movement, as we learned from the older Eastern systems of medicine, depletes energy. So again, it's trying to understand where you are, understand what your type is. For example, the boss lady, probably needs a little bit of both. They need some of that opportunity to burn off steam and get rid of the stresses and the tension of the day, but they also need the quiet and the quieting power of gentle movement. And they usually don't do both. They usually want to do the marathons and the running and all that other stuff. The Earth Mama, on the other hand, they probably need a little bit more active movement. They need they need to burn a little bit more. So, so again, matching your type to the right exercise routine is just as important as matching food to the right type and really understanding how to take care of yourself.
Fantastic. What's a fortress of solitude?
Oh my goodness, everybody should have one or create one. We all take on a lot of different roles, and I think men and women both do. Women maybe more so with the, sort of the brunt of childbearing and all that other good stuff. But you've got to have a place that re-energizes you. And most of us have a place. Hawaii, you mentioned, a great spa, whatever it is. But you need a place that you can go to every single day. So creating a space in your home that has everything that you love in it and is a place that you instantly get rejuvenated and feel amazing is critical. So pick a spot in your home or in your yard or garden, in your workplace, wherever it is. But that's a place that should reinvigorate and bring you back alive after a tough day or after a number of different hits throughout the day. That's where you go.
Awesome. And my wife was hopping up and down when she read the notes and saw this one, making our bedroom a haven.
Yes. Oh my goodness. So many people will bring work into the bedroom, bring their computers in the bedroom, bring their phones in the bedroom. All of that is noise. It's noise, it's light, it's distraction. And we're not able then to focus on a couple of things. We're not able to focus on resting our brain, our hearts, our nervous system. We can't focus on our partners because we're distracted by all the stimulation around us. And, it really doesn't make for a very good night's sleep, and it probably interferes with your sex life as well. So I think it's really important, to put all that stuff away and take the evening, that hour. Most of us don't have hours. It's like an hour at the most to really just enjoy the nighttime and the quiet and your partner and go to bed, so.
Woo! What is the importance of the breath?
It's everything. If you look at any of the Eastern traditions, they talk about breath. They'll use different words. Ayurveda uses pranayama. Chinese medicine uses a different word. But basically, our breath is our energy. Our breath is probably our chi. It's probably all of those different things wrapped up into one. And when we're not regulating our breath, that is when we're going to be more prone to irritability, anger, anxiety, high blood pressure, so many different things in between. So understanding how to breathe, understanding how to take deep breaths, to rejuvenate yourself is a skill that every person, even a little child, can learn. And I've taught so many in practice and carry with them no matter where they go.
Is there a 10-second tip on the breath?
I talk about the 4-7-8 breath. Are you familiar with that?
Yeah, absolutely. Go for it.
Yeah. So, I will teach patients how to do this too. So you essentially you close your mouth, you inhale through your nose, you count for 4, you hold it for 7. So basically you've expanded that belly out. You hold it for 7, a count of 7, and then you open your mouth, blow all that air out, flatten that belly as much as you can to the count of 8. So inhale on for 4, hold for 7, exhale for 8. And if you do a few cycles of that, we've seen blood pressure drop by anywhere from about 10 to 15 points in the office. My husband, again, is a dentist, and I taught him how to do this, and he used it on a patient because they can't do any procedures until the blood pressure's at a certain level. And he uses this on patients who are just anxious about being there, so their blood pressure spikes up, and he can get their blood pressure down that way. But I'll use it all throughout the practice. I'll use it on myself anytime I feel like I'm getting anxious or a patient's getting anxious, maybe about a blood draw or something that I'm saying, and it works.
Awesome. From there, I want to take my coach's hat off, give it to you. I want people to not just listen today, but to take one step, one action. What homework assignment would you give people today?
Goodness, I want everyone to take this test. I think that's what I would have them do. I want them to go, they can go to drtaz.com, Power Types, and take the test. Because once you take the test, even if you get nothing out of your type, like forget it, you don't even want to know what the label is, you're not interested. But that test forces you to connect back to yourself, to evaluate different pieces of your health, everything from your hair, your skin, your mood, all of that good stuff, and to really sit back and take a look at where you stand when it comes to your health currently. So I think I want everyone to take the test. That's their homework. So they can go to drtaz.com and take the test, or they can order the book and take the test.
Fantastic. What advice, Jessica, she always wants me to ask a question for parents and their kids. What advice would you give parents to help their kids today?
You know, I think coming off of everything I've been doing recently, I think it's understanding your child, understanding what type of child you have, and then creating the right lifestyle for that child. For example, if you've got a child that's a dreamer and off a lot in space, like screaming, yelling at them, insisting on a lot of stuff is not going to work. You want to create a lifestyle that allows for some creativity within some general boundaries of structure. So somebody like my daughter, for example, has to have a consistent bedtime. She has trouble with sleep. I have to help her with that. But she doesn't do well with at 8 o'clock you do this, at 7 o'clock you do this, at 6 o'clock you do this. It's sort of counter to her gypsy nature. So I think understand your child and understand the type of child you have, and realize, just like us, not one rule is applicable to every child, and really learn to kind of to mold their life and their activities and their academics and everything else to who they are, not what everybody else says they should be doing.
Awesome. And that's a mighty woohoo!
Yay!
So not only should you take the test, you should either, I guess you could blank out questions, take it for your child or take it with your child so that they don't have certain questions, but so that you can understand them better. On that note, you mentioned the quiz. Where can people go specifically to find out more and to find your beautiful book?
So my book is sold everywhere now. It's at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Books A Million, Target, anywhere books are sold. So they're more than welcome to go there. If they just wanted to take a look at the quiz or to get some other little incentives that we have, they can go to drtaz.com. That's doctor spelled out, and TAZ, TAZ.com.
Fantastic. If you didn't catch drtaz.com, come on over to inspirenationshow.com. We'll get you over to drtaz.com. A couple last questions for you. First off, what personally brings you the greatest happiness, or what I call the woohoo factor?
I love the woohoo. The greatest happiness. Oh my goodness. That's a tough one. I have so many amazing things in my life. The greatest happiness has got to be my family. I mean, I can't stray from that. I think they bring me an incredible amount of joy, and every success I have is sort of measured by them. Like everything is through that barometer. So I think they bring me the greatest happiness. I love the work I do. I feel so blessed and so gifted to be able to meet amazing people every day, play a role in their lives, and then be able to talk and spread this message across the country and across the world. I feel incredibly, incredibly blessed. So lots of things. It's hard to narrow it down, but if I had to pick, it would be my family.
Awesome. Any last words of wisdom you want to share with people?
Goodness, I think if they don't remember anything, if they can remember that being disconnected from yourself is a disservice not only to yourself, but to your soul's purpose. I think we were all put here for reasons, and when we become disconnected from the essence of who we are, then we sort of fail the mission for which we were sent. So it's critical to connect back to yourself, connect to others around you, and the more we all connect and the more we all become the highest versions of ourselves, we together can change our world, and that gets me excited and happy and hopeful for the future.
And that's a mighty woo! Thank you so much, Dr. Taz. This has been beautiful, special, outstanding. I'm so honored and thankful to have you on the show today.
Well, thank you. I enjoyed it, and I'm going to have to take that woohoo and use it some more. So how's that?
Awesome. You got it. So for everyone out there, this is Michael Sandler saying, be well, have fun, get the Superwoman prescription, or RX, and discover your own superpowers, and shine bright. Woohoo!
Woohoo!
Thank you so much.
Thank you. That was awesome. Great questions.
Yay. Glad you enjoyed it. Thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed it, be sure to like below. Also, leave your comments. Have some real fun with it. Subscribe to our channel where you're going to get more great videos, more interviews coming up. And check out our website, inspirenationshow.com. That's where you'll find tips, blogs, information, videos you won't find anywhere else, and useful and helpful resources to really help you kickstart your life and to shine bright. Thanks so much again. Thank you for your support. Like, comment, subscribe. See the website. Thanks so much and have fun. Of course, shine bright. Woohoo!